Well, it's an open question as to whether Bitcoin actually has any value because, let's face it, the original purpose of Bitcoin was to have a decentralized way around the banking system. There will be no banks, there will be individuals with a way of paying for things completely decentralized. You could just use your Bitcoin code, go to another Bitcoin address, and boom, no banking sector. So how did that work out for us? I mean, there's so many crypto exchanges that went out of business this year, and it's kind of strange because when you think about it, the purpose of Bitcoin was not to create more problems. The purpose of Bitcoin was to eliminate problems, and instead, it seems like we're getting more problems because a lot of these problems don't exist in the traditional banking system. Like, for instance, if you put money into any bank, almost any bank, including a credit union in the US, it's protected by FDIC, and people don't really spend a lot of time thinking about how solvent or safe the bank is. People just assume that it's safe and they don't really worry too much about it. Whereas now with crypto, people don't tend to hold it off the exchange or in their wallet, hot wallet or cold storage. They tend to have it on the exchange, and look at what happened. Money gets frozen, gets stolen, an FTX case, or cold storage wallets get lost, all kinds of problems. So you have to wonder, what problem does Bitcoin solve? Well, there actually are a few things that Bitcoin does solve, but it's actually not usually issues that are in the US. For instance, if you're in Africa, as an example, a lot of these countries have terrible inflation numbers. So even though Bitcoin has gone down a lot, some of these countries have inflation that's even worse than that. So even with the drop, it might not be a problem. Or in addition to that, instead, maybe they don't hold Bitcoin. Maybe they have a worthless currency. They convert it first to Bitcoin, and then they can move it to dollars. You might say, well, why don't they move it directly to dollars to begin with? Well, the main reason why is because in some of these countries, it's not so easy to get dollars. There might be currency controls, or it's just the exchange rate for dollars just might be extremely tough, because for one thing, in some of these countries there is no market for the African currency for dollars. This is really complicated, but once you have Bitcoin, they can easily convert that to dollars. The other issue is if you're in a country like China, where you want to get your money out of that country, but the government officially limits the amount of money you can take out of the country to around $50,000 for every time you leave the country. It might even be for a whole year or a lifetime. I'm not sure exactly, but anyway, there is a limit on how much you could take out of China. So what do Chinese people do? They're very industrious and thoughtful. They know how to do things, and what they've been doing is they've been trying to convert their currency to Bitcoin, because once they have it on Bitcoin, it's pretty anonymous. Nobody's really going to know that they have it in Bitcoin, and they could take it anywhere in the world and convert it into the currency that they want, and they could pretty much do what they want with it. And a lot of people in China have actually been using Bitcoin as a way to get their money out of the country. But for most of the people in the US, though, Bitcoin doesn't really solve a problem per se. Nobody has been buying coffee or anything like that day to day with their Bitcoin. And not only that, remember everybody was talking about Bitcoin solves the inflation problem? Well, it doesn't quite solve the inflation problem. If inflation is at 8%, 7.7, and then Bitcoin goes down 75%, 80%, that really isn't, this is really not a great hedge against inflation. And in fact, Bitcoin is purely a speculative item. It's not like you can use it for something else. Like, let's say you bought gold and the value declined a lot. Well, you can still melt down your gold and use it for jewelry or something like that. But Bitcoin, it only serves a purpose if you can exchange it for something, because it really has no other function. So it's still an open question as to whether Bitcoin solves anything or whether it has any value, especially in first world nations where the banks are really not falling apart. Here, money does seem to be somewhat safe. I mean, they have the FDIC. Now, it's true, FDIC has reserve problems, but in any case, people are not too worried about that. But think about how much fear you have in your crypto exchange, especially if you had it in Gemini Earn or Voyager, FTX, Celsius. I mean, it doesn't seem like any of those exchanges really are safe when you think about it. Whereas the banks, I haven't really run into anyone who said they don't trust their bank. I mean, you do see people who are a little scared of, but they usually aren't a more paranoid sort. So let me know what you think of Bitcoin. Does it have any value? It probably does at some point. At some point it probably will reach a low, but it's probably a lot lower than it is at the moment. So I'll see you in the next video. Click like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.